What's up, everybody? We're Microphone Joes, and I would like to congratulate you on tuning in to our first ever episode. I'm Adam Ick. Joining me is CJC and No Rev. So what's up, guys?
What's up?
What's going on?
Okay,
Ready to rock.
We've got a couple of news stories we want to touch on before we dive into our main topics. First, Rick and Morty Season 3 premiering July 30th. I know I'm personally excited. I love the show. We're going to have our own speculation episode the week before, so tune in back for that. Castlevania Season 2 renewed the day of the premiere. Personally, I'm a fan. The gentlemen with me are not.
Not big into anime.
Even though it's still impressive that you get renewed the day of the premiere. I mean...
Absolutely. So initially, Season 1 was going to be, it sounded like 2 parts, and then it sounds like they took the 4 episodes and rolled that into Season 2. On our third news topic, D23, there is going to be an Avengers Infinity War panel.
Yeah, so D23 is next weekend. That's Disney's kind of answer to Comic-Con. They're pulling all of their stuff into it year after year, pulling out of Comic-Con a little bit. They announced yesterday that they were going to do a panel for Infinity War and for Star Wars The Last Jedi, and if you're lucky enough to be there, you're going to get behind-the-scenes information and some more clips of the actual movie before anybody else. So, if you can get out there to California to see it, it's probably worth your time and money.
And a couple of game announcements as well. With Kingdom Hearts 3, and that shouldn't surprise anybody. At this point, Disney is an entertainment conglomerate. All right, so on to our first main topic, Spider-Man Homecoming. We all have seen it.
Such an amazing movie.
Yeah, it was
by
really, really good.
They finally did Spider-Man right, and
Yes.
It wasn't sad sack of crap Spider-Man.
Absolutely.
Very happy about that.
Yeah, nailed the high school feel. Definitely didn't feel like a huge cliche of high school. Felt like somebody actually went there. I think that helped a lot. I don't know if people were aware of it, but Tom Holland actually went undercover in an actual high school because the one he went to in England was a private high school, so it was nothing like an American high school. He had to wear uniforms and be there on time or face big punishments, so he went undercover for about a week in a New York City high school and kind of got the feel of what it's like to be a high schooler in America, and I think they nailed it.
It was definitely a nice touch. Throughout the whole movie, definitely. You just kind of got the sense that he was in over his head at first, which is really nice for a new change-up on Spider-Man, because it's always been like, hey, I'm Spider-Man, I'll learn how to make my suit, and then all of a sudden I'm just awesome at Spider-Man.
It's amazing to me that all of these people can sew so well.
Yeah.
I was watching Deadpool the other day, and that guy just... Holy shit, man.
Especially spandex. Like, come
yeah,
on.
where are people getting this much spandex, by
That's
the
a
way?
tough material, so anybody out there that knows how to do this, props to you. Alright, so what are some of your talking points? Obviously, we clearly all enjoyed the movie. Spider-Man is my favorite hero.
Always has been.
Oh, yeah, he's just amazing in general. What do you got, guys?
Well, I was really impressed that some of the Easter eggs that they threw in there, honestly, like... They opened up with adding the Department of Damage Control, which is a nice segue into some of the other, which can segue into some of the other movies, which is like a, storage containment facility from the fallout of all these other hero mishaps.
Is that canon? Is there a Department of Damage Control in the comic books?
There is an entire comic dedicated to it. I'm pretty sure it was like early 2000s, late 90s.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
All right. Is that still in circulation?
I'm not sure.
I don't think so, although I think as of recently they were trying to kind of weed it in with some of the S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff that they were doing.
Okay.
But, yeah, man, it was just really nice to see that they're throwing stuff like that in there to tie into some of the other franchises. And that's, like, just something simple like that can make it really easy to throw into the other franchises,
So
too.
you do believe that there'll be some kind of tie-in?
Oh, yeah, that'll be a reoccurring, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's a good plot point that nobody's ever thought about. Where does all this crap go?
Exactly.
Because when you think about it, if there isn't somebody to contain it like that, you're going to have people using it for diabolical reasons, which we'll talk about more later in spoilers. But
well, I mean, if you're one of those weirdos that keeps up with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like I do, then they do kind of touch on that, but not really, and it didn't really work. Because in the series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they actually stored all of their stuff, and it said that they stored all of their stuff at the Raft.
Okay.
And
is that the prison from Civil War? Okay.
Yeah. But it was kind of beforehand that all of this happened.
So that was the original intention of the rap.
Yeah, it was like a storage facility for all of this like fallout from all of the superhero mishaps and all that stuff.
Well, I think I read there was something like 1,500 tons of debris from when these aliens touched down, so it was difficult to
Well, we're just talking about New York City, Sokovia alone.
yeah. I mean,
exactly.
Or 3 helicarriers in Washington, D.C.
So it wouldn't surprise me, actually. And so this is a joint partnership between Tony Stark and the federal government.
Yeah.
This would not surprise me if S.H.I.E.L.D. was actually using the federal government like a shell corporation, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're actually the other half of this, so this wouldn't surprise me if this did factor in pretty heavily to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That seems like a good spin-off.
Does anybody else find it interesting that Tony Stark's company, Damage Control, is cleaning up the messes that, let's all agree, Tony Stark pretty much is responsible for all the problems in the MCU, and he's getting paid to clean it up?
Well, they even touched on that, too, in the Spider-Man movie, if you don't remember.
That's crazy, though.
Is like all of the bigwigs are, feeding on all this stuff, and then the little guys are left to pick up the scraps and clean up after them, and they actually point that out.
Yeah,
in the
it's just
Spider-Man
insane to me
movie.
that they would pay the same guy that caused or helped to cause this problem.
Yeah, shouldn't he be in prison by now at this point? I mean, come on.
Yeah, that guy basically prints money. They might
That's
just
true.
rename the dollar bill to the fucking Tony Stark. That's money that he has in that universe.
It'll be 100 Starks.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's interesting. And, actually my speculation is that future Spider-Mans might continue to play on this technology.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into spoilers a little bit later, but potentially Spider-Man's next villains also kind of acquiring this. Because it sounds like they're going to keep Spider-Man, and we had talked about this before off the podcast, pretty street level. And that it wouldn't surprise me if that's how they give these average humans, like Michael Keaton's character, the ability to step up and contend with Spider-Man.
There's a point, not to cut you off, Michael Keaton in this movie was
Phenomenal.
fantastic.
Oh, yeah. At first, when I heard about it, I didn't really agree with it. I was like, is he really the guy? But then after seeing him in action, he nailed it.
He was a show stealer. That was amazing.
Anytime he was, you're right. Anytime he was on screen, he was the dude.
Just compelling, believable. That felt like a genuine villain in a way that some of the others have not translated so well. They feel still too comic booky. They haven't found a way to ground them.
Exactly, and that's another thing too that I really liked about this villain too was the fact that and all of the other, doesn't matter if it's just Spider-Man or just the Avengers, but every single villain has been like this world-threatening plot.
It was a smaller story. It wasn't, I mean, what he was doing could have affected the world, but him, the villain, was really only a threat to Spider-Man.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was nice. It was a breath of fresh air because, like you were saying, Rev, everything has been end of the world, end of the universe, end of some kind of planet. So it was kind of nice to take a step back and have just a small story where only the hero really is affected. And then, there's the potential for other things because what he was doing, which we'll get into.
This was actually a strange first for me as well, because this is the only movie that I've walked out of and thought, I would wear that. And what I mean is Michael Keaton's coat is actually like a nice, believable coat. Like no other Marvel movie I've walked into, I'd wear that around town.
That flight suit, not the wings, the flight suit. Yeah. It's very Top Gun feeling.
Yeah.
The helmet, it's so functional looking. And that's one of the things that Marvel does really well, is even the crazy Iron Man stuff. It is very grounded in this
believable
science, pseudoscience, but that flight suit more than anything else, that whole thing looked like it could be real.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, even with the Iron Man suits, that's potential future technology. Yeah. You know what I mean? I could see something like the Vulture's costume actually going into production and being used for military purposes. That was very functional.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wasn't too OP. Worked out really well.
Yeah. Another thing I really liked, too, was the fact that they actually used the classic Spider-Man song from the TV series.
We talked about that before we went into it. Rev and I talked about that. Every one of them has kind of stuck that in there a little bit, and we were wondering, and right off the bat, as soon as they do the Marvel logo...
It was in the opening credits. I mean, it was a little more dramatic than the classic. I was kind of preferring that they would do the classic song. But, I mean, let's face it, it was a good rendition of it. I was very satisfied with it.
For a very comic booky, cartoony kind of song. Actually, I had read that they were debating about putting it in. Like, they felt they had to, because it is so iconic.
Which I'm glad that they did.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was a difficult spot to slip in.
Yeah.
So if you felt like you had to put it in your movie, that was a pretty good intro.
And especially, too, with, like, all the other movies, yeah, they kind of did it, but it was more like, it was like Spider-Man, or it was like Peter Parker's ringtone for his phone or something stupid.
Guy playing
the guy.
Yeah, it was something stupid like that. So, I mean, really, it was just nice to see that they did it properly and one that we would actually enjoy, you know what I mean? Not just some really bad rendition of it.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, may I point out that cat in the deli was an obvious food safety violation. That was just nasty.
You're sitting next to me and you go, ugh. Really? That's what's going to pull you out of the movie?
Yeah, well, it's just one of my nitpicks. I mean, obviously, not every movie's going to be perfect. I'm going to end up, having some kind of nitpick. And if that's the least of it, or that's the most that I'm able to nitpick, is that a cat in a deli is a food safety violation, it's a pretty good movie.
I don't know, man. That ruined the entire thing for me. I couldn't watch it after that.
Yeah, it just ruined my appetite.
But how well known the deli is as well, because Donald Glover's character was talking about the deli as well. So everybody knows that cat. So either that guy's paying off the health inspector, or that
something's going on.
Maybe in New York City, and maybe if we have any listeners from New York, you can tell us. Maybe you view cats as a plus because they get rid of rats. I don't know. Maybe.
But for me personally,
although that cat was pretty fat, it was like Garfield level lazy looking cat.
Yeah, he hasn't hunted anything in a while. That's true.
Just the leftover deli meat on the counter.
Mondays, am I right?
Exactly.
But speaking of Donald Glover's character, he was actually supposed to be Aaron Davis, which ironically in the comics is actually Miles Morales' uncle. So that's a nice segue.
Well,
into
Aaron
that.
Davis too his character in the comics is some kind of minor villain, isn't he?
He's like a petty.
They made a little reference to it because he was trying to buy off of the guys something to climb walls or something like that.
Anti-grav gloves.
Yeah, anti-grav gloves. So that was a little Easter egg nod towards what his character is in the comics.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. And we had talked about it before. Is that looking forward, that I think Miles Morales is going to play some part. Sony still retains the right, obviously, to a lot of Spider-Man sidekicks, fellow heroes, fellow Spider-Men. And villains, and I'm thinking that they're going to build a little pocket universe where he has a role to play. He is too popular. He's
especially now too. They've been pushing that dude or that character especially forward full steam ahead.
Yeah, he is easily the second most recognizable Spider-Man, just the name alone. And there has been a lot of Spider-Men. I mean, Clone Wars, Ben Reilly, all of them. So that I think they're going to bring him to the big screen in a big way.
Yeah. And that's another thing too is they don't actually say how old his nephew is either. So even if
I have a nephew, that's all he says.
Yeah, because he could even be a baby right now. So after this Spider-Man, pans out or finishes his stint, you could still throw him in there.
Now Miles Morales is a little.
Is younger
he's
than
a little
Peter
younger
Parker.
when he becomes Spider-Man, right?
Peter Parker is full grown and he's still a kid.
Yeah, so
in the comics.
By the time that he becomes the next Spider-Man, no, Peter Parker died.
Yeah, that's
universe.
it.
And then they had a big crossover. He goes to another universe. But
that was the whole
Spider-Verse. He's been Spider-Man
line
for a while, if you will. So,
yeah.
Yeah, he stepped up to play, and it makes me feel like he probably was younger just because of his comments that he has a nephew in the neighborhood and he doesn't want those type of weapons around.
Yeah.
That makes me feel like, he's got to be pretty young. He's still looking out for this kid.
Yeah.
So,
and he wasn't even that old himself either. I mean, because for him to still have a rap sheet that long and be as young as he is and have that kind of tie-in, it opens up a big old possibilities for the future of the character.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if it's confirmed, but I thought that the popular rumor was in the Venom movie that Carnage was going to be the villain. At least I think
that's the only way you really can go. If Spider-Man is not going to be in the Venom movie,
right? Well, Venom is probably going to be. I'm assuming they're probably going to paint him as like an anti-hero.
Yeah,
he steps up to the plate, but he doesn't have the morality of Spider-Man.
Yeah, and how do you even open, or what kind of?
I'm interested to see how they introduce something like that without directly mentioning Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's what I meant. How are you going to introduce the character?
I haven't heard anybody say this, but is there a possibility that they make this Venom an extension of the Amazing Spider-Man.
Could
I don't
be.
know. That's interesting. They kind of keep building on